This is day 4 in this series, and there's been a lot of questions about bridging. Now, I have covered this a couple of times, but I maybe haven't gone into enough detail, and so I'm getting a lot of questions in the comments and a lot of people emailing me asking about bridging with various questions. So I'm just going to start again, and I'm going to go a little bit into more detail on bridging finance. First of all, what is bridging finance? So bridging finance is a short-term loan that you take in order to finance a gap, okay? And that's what's called a bridge, okay? So if you imagine that we're here, so if we're here and we want to get to here, the bridge bridges that gap, okay? So it may be, you know, traditionally, if you had a house, if you were a homeowner, forget property investment. So if you were a homeowner and you had a house and you wanted to sell this house, but you'd seen a really nice house that you wanted to buy, but you can't buy it until you sell this one. So bridging loans became quite popular in the 1970s and 80s, and that's what they were intended for. They were intended for residential homeowners in order to bridge the gap between selling your house and buying your house. Now, ordinarily, you would just find something to buy and you would be in a chain, and then when you sell your house, these people know you're buying it and the solicitors arrange everything, and then this gets sold on the same day, the money gets transferred and you buy this on the same day, sorted. But what happened, or can happen, is that for whatever reason, this might fall through. So your sale might fall through, which means that the buyer that's buying your house can't complete on the deal. Okay? Now that is a problem for you then, because you've got to go and find another buyer, and you can't buy this new one until, I'll put down here, so this is your old house and this is your new house. But you can't buy this new one until you've sold this one. And then you're at risk of these people here saying, oh, they can't complete anymore, so we'll sell it to someone else. You're in risk of losing it. So what happens is companies started up called bridging loan companies. And what they would do is they would say, don't worry, we'll lend you the money to buy this one while you wait to find another buyer for this one. Okay? Now, in the 70s and 80s, you would be paying around about 20% interest on a bridging loan. So it was a very, very expensive form of finance. I mean, it still is expensive today, but back in the 70s and 80s, it was extortionate, 20%. Mind you, so were mortgage rates, you know. Back in 1981, the mortgage rate was 14%. Anyway, we digress. So that is the history of bridging, where it came from. Okay, so let's fast forward to where we are today. You've got essentially two types of mortgages. You've got a residential mortgage and you've got a buy-to-let mortgage. Okay, now obviously within buy-to-let you've got various types of mortgages for serviced accommodation, for HMOs and things like that. But essentially, for all intents and purposes, you've got two types of mortgages. You've got your resi and you've got your buy-to-let. None of these mortgages allow you to buy a run-down property, do it up, and then sell it. Okay? So in order to do a flip, or a refurb, whatever we want to call it, same difference. In order to do a flip, we can't use one of these two properties. We can't use one of these two types of mortgages. Okay? Now, if you're buying a property that you want to refurb and refinance and let it out, there are certain lenders that will give you a refurbish buy-to-let mortgage. But there are no lenders at the moment that will let you have a mortgage on a flip and then sell it 3 or 4 months later. So what do we need to do? That's where the bridging finance comes in. Okay, so we've got a property here that you want to refurb. So you want to buy this property, but none of these traditional lenders from buy-to-let or residential will lend you the money. So we have to go to a bridging company. And so, just as we said here, the aim is that you're going to sell this after you've done the refurb. Okay? So, the bridging company will bridge the gap. They will allow you to buy this, do some work on it, and then sell it. Now, when you get to this stage, you don't necessarily have to sell. You have two options. You can sell, or you can then switch it to a buy-to-let or a HMO product or serviced accommodation. But the key here that you need to understand is that you can't buy a rundown property and put it straight on a buy-to-let mortgage, HMO, or a serviced accommodation. Okay? So, you use a bridge, and let's now look at typically how the bridge, let's look at the details of how it works. Okay? So, they will only lend you some key points. They will only lend you 75% of the purchase price. There are the odd few that will lend you 75% based on the end value, but there's only a few. But the majority, they'll lend you 75% of the purchase price. Okay? So, they'll also lend you, and again, this is not everyone, bridging finance is unregulated, which means that they don't have to stick to any rules. They can kind of decide what they lend you and what they don't lend you. They can change things. It's not a regulated product. Regulating means doesn't come under the Financial Conduct Authority, which is part of the government. Okay, it's an unregulated product. Okay, so they don't need to adhere to certain regulated guidelines. Okay. So 75% of the purchase price. So let's say that the purchase price is 100,000. So that means they're going to give you 75k for the purchase. They'll also, as I said, certain ones will give you 75% of the refurb costs. So now we've got 75% of the refurb. So let's say that is going to be, let's say you've got 20 grand of refurb, so they're going to lend you 15,000. Now, for this example, I'm just going to take out the refurb. As I say, there's been a lot of confusion over this. I'm just going to take out the refurb and we're just going to use this 75% of the purchase price, okay? So, you got 75k. They're going to charge you 1%. Actually, it's going to be anywhere between 0.6 and 1.2% per month. Okay? But we're just going to call it 1% for now. So they're going to charge you 1% per month. So that's going to be £750 interest. So every month that you're going to get £750, you're going to have to pay £750 on that 75 grand. The next thing they do is if you want to borrow this money for 6 months, 9 months or a year or however long, they take all the interest up the front. So let's just say that you want to borrow this for 12 months. So they're going to charge you 750 multiplied by 12. So that's 7,500 plus 1,500, that's £9,000. So the interest is going to be 9,000 for 1 year. So they're going to take that off the money they give you. So we've now got 75k, take away 9k. They're also going to charge you some lending fees, which are typically going to be about £2,000. So there's another £2,000. So let's take that off there. We've got 11,000 of interest and fees. Oh, one thing I forgot. They're also going to charge you a survey fee. So they're going to get your property that you want to buy surveyed to make sure it's worth the money you say it is. So that could be another £1,000. So now we're up to £12,000 in fees. So if we take that off, you're now left with £63,000. So this 100k here is now 63k. Because they've taken all their fees at the beginning, they've taken all the interest at the beginning. So it doesn't really matter what you do with the property now, they have their money secure. They've got a charge now on a property that's worth 100 and they've only lent you 63,000. If anything goes wrong, they'll just repossess the property and they're going to be quids in. Okay? So that's how bridging works in the finer details. I say they will lend you on refurb as well. And the way they will calculate that is that they will ask what you're going to be doing. So they might ask you for a schedule of works. You give them a schedule of works, then they will estimate how much it's going to be worth at the end and then decide on how much they lend you. And as I said, it's all unregulated, so there's no hard and fast rules here. Some people will lend you 70, some people will lend you 65, some people won't lend anything at all, some people only lend you 50% of the refurb, you know, it totally depends. But typically, this is how it works, okay? Now, when you get to the end of the term, if you sell this within 6 months, but you've told them you want it for 12, they will refund you your interest. So if you get sold after 6 months, they will refund £4,500 of interest because you only used it for half the year. So you get a refund. Now, my advice is always take the loan for longer than you need, because you might be saying, okay, well, what, Nick, why don't I just say that I want to borrow the money for 6 months? And then that way, I'll have to pay less at the beginning. Yes, you could do, but if something goes wrong and it takes you longer than 6 months to sell it, so they will charge you a renewal fee. Okay? So if you said that initially I only wanted for 6 months, and then you get to 6 months and say, I need to keep the money for another month, they'll charge you an extra fee. And that is going to be more expensive than the month's worth of interest. They might charge you another £2,000 renewal or extension fee. Yeah, they call it various names, okay? So it's always best to go longer than you need, and then when you sell it, you get a refund, okay? Guys, I hope that's cleared it up, because as I say, there have been lots of comments, lots of confusion, lots of questions. I hope that's cleared it up. Let me know in the comments below if that's easier to understand and if that is a lot clearer. The other, we have had a lot more questions on mortgages and 6 month rules and taxes and things like that. We are going to do more videos on those, but at the moment we're kind of stacked up with questions and videos to do. It's quite funny, when we started this YouTube channel, we started off with things that we started off with things that we thought that would be good to teach you, and hopefully that's been good. But as we've gone along, there's been so many more questions that we're kind of going off at tangents now and getting into more detail, which is great if that's what you want to watch. You know, we're having to answer lots and lots more questions that we hadn't anticipated at the beginning. So bear with us with all your questions and answers. We will make videos, particularly if they're more complicated, but we've just got a stack of videos to get through. Guys, thanks very much for supporting this channel, and keep liking the videos, keep subscribing, guys. So I'll see you tomorrow for day 5, and day 5 is going to be on procrastination. So you don't want to miss that one. So get that bell button notification, and I'll see you tomorrow.